Welcome to the podcast of the impossible. I'm Peter Wood, and my guest this week is Willard, a mentalist and hypnotist who grew up in the Ozarks, but doesn't sell or make drugs as far as I know.
As far as you know.
As far as plausible deniability. That's I don't want to know. It's fine.
It is so good to be here with you.
Yeah, thanks for being. Oh, for our friend who's listening in the year 2087.
Yeah.
Ozark is a current popular show where people make drugs and launder money in the area where you grew up, sort of.
And I'm neither in the show nor is it based on my life.
That's probably for the best.
Yeah.
I mean, and I would say that even if it were not true, if I were you. So yeah.
That's a lawyer approved statement.
That's yeah.
That's passed through counsel.
I did want to talk though, and I mentioned it in the intro, but you have a whole hypnosis background as well, and I am curious. The main thing I think that I wanted to chat with, that I think is an important public service announcement that we are sort of uniquely qualified to talk about is. I believe there.
What are we uniquely qualified to talk about?
And we'll see.
You can only get it here.
Folks will tell us in the comments whether that is true or not. But no, I believe that there is such a difference between stage hypnosis and clinical hypnosis that it might as well be two different things. It's kind of like saying. The difference between a magician and a juggler, like, sure, there's a little bit of overlap, but we don't call a magician a juggler and vice versa.
Right.
Whereas the fact that there is a person called a hypnotist, and that person is either going on stage and doing an entertaining show with a self-selected sample of people who are open to those suggestions, that is very different from I want to stop smoking, so I went to a hypnotist, and I don't think that the average person really understands what a divide or gulf there is between those two. And you have experience with both. So that's why it was certainly on the clinic, you are not a clinical hypnotist, but you have had experience on the other side of that. So I'm just sort of curious what your maybe let's start with like some definitions. Like if someone were to ask you what is a hypnotist, would you break it down by clinical and stage, or would you how would you sort of talk around that?
Well, it's different in the way it's presented.
Yeah.
And it's different in what the end goal is.
Sure.
But hypnosis at its root is similar.
Okay.
It's about being able to but two totally different purposes, totally different goals. And I came into hypnosis because of clinical hypnosis.
Okay.
And my training was in a hypnosis clinic.
Okay.
In Harrison, Arkansas.
Okay.
Actually, and a very interesting story about how I got there, which I guess.
I would like to hear this.
How about I tell you the story?
No,
I don't think we've ever.
Don't tell me the story. Just move on.
But I don't think I've ever told you really the background of this. So it starts. I'm trying to think how to lead into this the best way. But it starts long before I ever knew that hypnosis was really more than just like something I'd heard of.
Okay.
That it was like a legit thing,
okay.
Either stage or otherwise. I had been to a comedy hypnosis show.
Okay.
Like a comedian who had a comedy hypnosis show. He told some jokes in the beginning that weren't very funny and then made people do some very funny things.
Sure.
And in that show, in the audience, I didn't volunteer and go on stage, but in the audience, I sat there and tried to play along.
Okay.
And I felt myself, sort of going into this state that I didn't quite understand. And then I popped myself right back out of it and convinced myself I was not a subject that was able to be hypnotized.
Got it.
That's what I believed.
Yeah. Okay.
And so fast forward several years down the road, and in my other career, my other job, a thing that I had, something else that I do, we rolled up at this entertainment resort headquarters. Okay. And we're going there to see the owner and going there to have a visit and talk about various things, including the entertainment world and all of that. And when we roll up, one of the presidents of the park was out front. And at the time, I'm a smoker.
Okay.
So I get out of the car, and everybody else goes inside for the rest of the meetings, and I needed a smoke break.
Yeah.
So I go over to this guy and I said, "Hey, how are you?" Introduce myself, and let's see, we'll call him Chuck. We'll call him Chuck.
Okay.
And so he said, "I'm Chuck," and of course I knew who he was. And I said, "Well, what are you doing?" And he said, "I'm on a smoke break." And I said, "Oh, good, because I need to smoke." So I pull out my cigarettes and I light a cigarette and having a smoke. And I noticed that he doesn't have one, so I offer him a cigarette. And he says, "No, I don't smoke." And at first,
nice.
my instinct, because smokers, it was a little while ago, so the society was a little different about smokers.
Okay, sure.
But still, I wanted to be sure. Oh, you're not a smoker. I'm sorry. I'll turn around. And then I said, "Wait, I thought you just said you were on a smoke break."
What are you doing?
And he goes, "Yes, I used to be a smoker, but I still take smoke breaks."
Okay.
Because I learned that smoking is to relieve pressure or stress or whatever it is that you're trying to avoid for a moment.
Yeah.
And you can do that by taking the break
that
smokers take without actually smoking.
Very smart.
And I said, "Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
But how long did you smoke?" And had the whole conversation. And it turned out that he had been addicted to cigarettes and the habit or the chemicals or whatever it is. He was a smoker and couldn't stop. And he went to see a hypnotist.
Okay.
And I said to him, "Oh, that's interesting." And it worked. Absolutely, it worked. I still take my smoke breaks, but I have no desire to smoke anymore.
Nice. Wow.
So I said, "Well, I'll want to quit one day. I know that I will. Right now, I'm happy being a smoker. But when it's time to quit, can I call you? Can I get the information?" Absolutely. Yeah. So fast forward several years down the road, I actually quit smoking.
Okay.
Because it was a habit, and I just broke it. Just of pure will.
Yeah. Okay.
I quit smoking. And then I started again, and that time I became addicted. I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop smoking. Okay. So I called up Chip or Chuck or whatever we're calling him, and I said, "Tell me about this deal." So I go down. Hypnotist in Harrison, Arkansas. His name is Danny Thomas.
How did you find this guy?
Through Chip.
Oh, okay.
I called Chip and I say, "Hey, Chip, you saw the hypnotist, and you quit smoking. You still take your smoke breaks, but don't smoke.
Right.
And can you tell me who your person was?"
Okay.
And he said, "Yeah."
And this was close enough to...
Yeah, it's close enough. It's Harrison, Arkansas. It was like 30 minutes from Branson.
Gotcha.
45 minutes from Branson.
Okay, sure.
And so so I say, okay. So I call Danny Thomas. I book an appointment. I go down to see him. And I go in. And I don't believe this is going to work. Okay. But I'm willing to try anything. Sure. Because I needed to quit. And I was addicted. And it was time to quit smoking. And so I go in, and about 2 hours later, I walked out of there, and I didn't have a craving, didn't have a withdrawal, didn't have a desire. It was as if I never smoked.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And how long was this between you? So you said you quit with sheer will, and then you got back into it. So how long between your false stop?
It was about 3 years.
Okay, so you had tried to quit 3 years previously,
and I did,
and you did, but
3 years later, because I was going through a career thing that was very stressful, and I said I will start smoking to manage the stress. Okay, just for this period of time, because clearly it was a habit. I broke it before, so I can take it back up, and it'll be my short-term, distraction from the stress of what I'm going through from this period of time. It was an election cycle. That was something I did before, and so basically. So
how long? So I guess how long had you been smoking?
The second time. For about 9 months.
Okay.
For about 9 months.
But you were very much addicted. I mean,
that time I was addicted. It wasn't a habit. I couldn't quit on my own.
Gotcha.
So that's why I called him, and I went down.
Cool.
And
2 hours later?
2 hours later, that was it. And that's been, I keep track of it right here. 9 years, 2 months, 17 days, 18 hours, and 40 minutes ago.
Nice.
I have not smoked 60,584 cigarettes.
Wow.
I have not spent based on the cigarette price 9 years ago.
Which from
Probably
what
don't.
I'm not a smoker, but
I don't
I'm
know.
assuming,
but at least, I have not spent at minimum $18,000.
Wow, that's great.
So it's completely crazy.
Yeah, no.
So I mean, that was awesome. Probably more than you were asking for.
No.
That's how I found hypnosis.
So how did you feel? You saw this guy doing this funny thing on stage with people, and you were not cut out for it. I mean, for being a participant.
Right.
But then another guy who also said he was a hypnotist cured you of this addiction. Was there any dissonance then when you were, did you see them as the same thing or as different things?
No,
or?
I understood they were practicing the same craft.
Okay.
But I knew that Danny had something different.
Okay.
But I wasn't interested in clinical hypnosis.
Sure.
You know, I wasn't interested in being a hypnotist at all.
Yeah.
But when that was over, I said to Danny, "This is amazing."
Yeah.
I actually waited about a year
just to see if
it worked.
Yeah.
You
sure.
know, was it a fluke? Did it work? Good. And truly, a year later, no cravings, no withdrawals, no desire to smoke, and it was as if I was never a smoker.
Right. Cool.
And so I call him up and I say, "Danny, you know, I can't thank you enough. You've changed my life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I'm interested in doing what you do. Do you ever teach people what you do?"
Yeah.
Because it's so different. I remember when I sat down in the chair, I told him, I said, "Well, I can't be hypnotized. I don't even know why I'm here.
Yeah.
I can't be hypnotized
because,
of my experience." Right. And he said, "Well, leave that to me."
Oh yeah. Sure.
And I did. And I just trusted him.
Yeah.
And so based on the recommendation of the other guy and, the other things, I have since sent people to Danny to quit smoking.
Oh,
and
nice.
Without exception, it has worked.
Wow.
Every time.
That's great.
Yeah. So he agreed to train me. He's older. He's getting up in age, and he agreed that he would train me, and I would be his last student. And so I ended up doing several months of book study.
Okay.
Okay. And then I took about 12 days of time off, vacation.
Okay.
And I went and worked in his clinic for 100 hours in 12 days.
Wow. Okay.
And at the end of it, took my test, my exam, and became certified with the National Guild of Hypnotists and became a hypnotist.
Okay.
And so those skills can then be used in a clinical setting, the way Danny has used it for years.
Sure.
Danny's background before he got into hypnosis was studied psychology. Okay. Okay. He was a counselor, like certified as a counselor.
Sure.
And when he discovered hypnosis, he let all that fall away. Took some of those skills, but realized that hypnosis was really just a combination of all the things that he had been trained to do.
Yeah,
helping people through counseling, using psychology to to influence people's behaviors or know the right way to approach them.
Yeah.
But you don't have to have that background because hypnosis kind of combines all of that.
Sure.
In a very structured, formal way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, but I think that a common question people have about hypnotists when they are seeing a comedy show and some person is strutting around on stage and Britney Spears music is playing and they are dancing like a crazy person because they've been told that they are Britney Spears, right? That you tend to put it in the category of disbelief, like a magic show, and honestly, I mean, much like a lot of, a mentalist, like people will say, "Oh, that person must be a plant. They must be a Confederate, a stooge, a part of the act," And I guess I'm curious, what is your sort of take if somebody says to you, like, when people are on stage, in a hypnotist show, is that real? What's your
that actually just happened to me.
Okay.
A couple of months ago, we were at the Renaissance Festival with a bunch of my friends, all lay people, nobody in magic or hypnosis, just friends.
Yep.
And we went. There was a hypnotist there, and he did his show and he did his thing. And at the end of it, they just said, "Oh, I said, well, what'd you think?" And they go, "Well, it was funny. It was this and that, but it's not real." And I said, "Well, what was not real? Like all of it just happened. We just watched it happen." Yeah. And they go, "No, it was just plants. It was just people playing along."
Oh, really?
It literally said that to my face.
Wait, plants or
plants, meaning they were all Confederates, or
okay.
They said it was plants, meaning it was people that agreed to go up and just fake it.
Okay, so not people who are just being agreeable, who are a regular ticketed Renaissance patron, but they believed that the people who were on stage were working with the hypnotist?
Yes. Right.
Okay.
Well, they believed it was both. They said it was plants or people that were working with the hypnotist, or people who just came up to play along for fun.
I see. Okay.
And to my mind, so side tangent here.
Sure.
I feel like when people don't know how something works,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's magic, whether it's mentalism, whether it's hypnosis, whichever it is,
Yeah.
I feel like if they, especially smart people,
Mm-hmm.
right, if they can't figure it out, if it's too much for them to understand,
Right.
then that's what they default to. Well, it must
yes.
be fake. That person
Right.
must be paid off. And so my response to them is the same as I'll say now, which is, you really think that this guy who makes his living doing this
Yeah.
just travels with a busload of people to
Yeah,
get on
yeah, yeah.
stage and make him look good?
Exactly.
Like that's ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, in our show we call them flap lifters versus the not flap lifters.
The skeptics in the
Yes,
audience.
right?
Yes.
The
Yeah, yeah.
skeptics in the audience.
Uh-huh.
You know, when they can't answer it,
Mm-hmm.
then that's just what they default to. But the second part of what they said is correct.
Okay.
If to be hypnotized, you have to be agreeable.
Yes.
And so, yes, when you're seeing a comedy hypnosis show, what the people who are the biggest stars of the show
Mm-hmm.
are the ones who maybe they're a little quieter in real life.
Right.
And shy, or a little shy. Maybe not. They may have a great personality, and they just enjoy, being in the center of attention.
Sure. Yep. Yep.
Or maybe they want to be the center of attention, but they're a little bit more shy.
Yeah.
And so, as long as they are convinced that it works and committed to making it work and comfortable with the hypnotist, and they trust the environment and the space and the person they're working with, hypnosis will work for anyone.
Right.
And especially for people who are looking to, to be the center of attention.
Right.
And that's
Right.
what you get from a hypnosis show.
Yeah.
But you take that same thought process and apply it to the clinical setting.
Yeah.
And as long as somebody is committed to making a change,
Right.
and
right.
somebody is comfortable with the environment, and they trust the space and the person they're working with,
Right.
then it works. If you believe it works,
Yeah.
then it's going to work.
No, I think that's why clinical hypnosis is more believable than stage hypnosis, because you did not go into his office and come out acting like Britney Spears.
Right.
You know, you went in with so there are not to discount any of that, but there are so many other elements, from the placebo effect to,
Yes.
all sorts of biases. There are lots of rational, intelligent reasons why you going to a clinical hypnotist to get an outcome that you want will find success, right? Because you went in there wanting it, and you even in your case where you're sort of on the fence about, like, I don't really think this is going to work. I don't believe in it. At the very least, your heart was in the right place, if you
Correct.
will.
Yes. And my desire was there.
Sure.
I really wanted to stop smoking.
Sure.
And I had tried everything I could to do it on my own.
Right.
Short of medication, which I didn't want to do.
Sure.
And so I was there. I was a willing victim, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not,
Well, and I guess that's what is hard to wrap our heads around from a stage hypnotist perspective, is what we sort of, the best story, like you say, is a person who is sort of quiet and reserved in their normal life. And then they go on stage and they do something that you would never imagine that they would do. And then afterwards, and this is the part that I get hung up on, afterwards, that person will always say, I don't know what made me do that. Or they'll completely either deny it, or they will say, I don't know why that happened, and that is the hardest pill for me to swallow, because it sure seems like I totally understand you are being, you're up on stage under the lights, given permission to do something outlandish, and you have full, you can, if you want to deny it afterwards, you might as well. So it's a very freeing environment. But then aren't you lying to your friends?
No.
That's where
because
I get
that becomes their reality.
Okay.
They believe, they may or may not, they are conscious at all times. They're not unconscious. It's not sleep like nighttime sleep and they don't know what's going on around.
That's fair.
Okay. But they are susceptible to the suggestions because they've committed and they're comfortable with the environment.
Yeah.
And when they're given the suggestion that they will remember the things they want to remember, then maybe they don't want to remember all of those moments because their real self it would be uncomfortable with that, or their conscious, their fully conscious self might be uncomfortable with that, and so they only remember the things they want to remember, and that's the suggestion that's the suggestion from the stage show.
That's true. Yeah, there's normally some outro, where the performer, the host will tell everyone something. Yeah, and I appreciate. I mean, they usually do end on a positive, you'll leave the stage feeling refreshed and 100%. Wonderful,
it's the hypnotist's gift to the people who really made the show possible.
Yeah.
I mean, a stage hypnosis show, a comedy stage hypnosis show is really an improv show with people who didn't know that they could be improv stars. That's really what it is.
Yep.
It's a little more coached, a little more directed, a little more formal, because it is a show and the entertainer, the hypnotist is responsible for delivering a fun show.
Yeah.
But and the difference also between clinical, it really isn't different, but it goes back to something you and I have talked about before, which is when you go to perform, when you head to a show and you're working for a corporate audience at their awards banquet or something, they didn't pay to see you. They didn't know they're going to see you.
Right.
That would be a death knell to a hypnotist.
Yeah.
Because people need to come in with an expectation that they are going to see a hypnotist. And when they know that in advance, when they've bought a ticket to the show, when they show up at the Renaissance Festival to the hypnosis show at 5:30 or 12 or whatever time the show is, they made that commitment because they're coming to see a hypnosis show. So they're already 50% there. Sure. It's the same as when they buy a ticket to Willard and Wood. They're already 50 or 80% committed to the outcome being positive,
expecting it to work,
100% right.
Yep, sure.
And so
that makes sense.
The rest of it is just a topple. We push it up to the hypnotist has to know what they're doing and etc.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think all of this assumes that they're competent and and like I said, I think
some are better than others.
Yeah, and from the participant perspective, I think it's the person who is a little bit of a class clown already, who gets up at the homecoming hypnotist show, is less surprising to people, I think, as opposed to when somebody comes down off stage and says, I have no idea what just happened up there, and that's a but yeah, I guess it's a different social contract.
People inherently want to have fun.
Yeah.
They want to have a good time.
Yeah.
And some people, that is sitting back watching, and they enjoy that. And for some people, they wish they could participate more.
Right.
I mean, it's it's the same when we do a show. It's like you need a volunteer, and all the hands shoot up. Yeah. And sometimes you want the person whose hand goes up, and sometimes it's definitely not the person.
Yeah.
Depending on what you're going to do.
Yeah. Well, and I also think we're all guilty of rewriting our own histories, but normally we do it with the benefit of hindsight, as opposed to in a situation like that where I may potentially be cherry picking the facts, I guess. Like again, I'm mostly hung up on the whole, I left my group of friends, I went up on stage, I did something outlandish and crazy, I came back, and now I'm saying that I don't remember doing it, and I guess I also know that just as humans, it's one of these, he who has the best story wins. And, we should, whoever, not gender specific, but the point is that it's a much better story to come back and say, what was I doing up there? I don't know,
And a good business-minded hypnist would be able to sell you the DVD of Proof.
Oh yeah,
brilliant!
Absolutely,
$35 after the show.
So yeah, I'm fascinated in that. But no, I think that's a good. I mean, I that's a helpful chat to have, and hopefully our friend who's hanging out with us, a little peek behind the curtain. That's what we're doing.
And DVD,
here today,
of course, does age man.
Yes,
sure. There's ways to do that.
For the folks listening who don't know what Ozark is, it's also If you are curious about maybe seeing one of your, public shows or private events or that sort of thing, whatever's going on in your world, the Willard website is hellowillard.com.
Yeah.
And then on social media, you can head on over to willardsparlor.com. That's Willards with an S on the end and then parlor with a U in the middle of it. And that is going to do it for this.
Very British.
Yes. So I appreciate, I should do
Old
that.
world.
I should change. This should be the podcast of the impossible, but there should be a U in there somewhere, just to mix it up. It feels more European that way. That is that's it for this episode of the podcast. Where's the U in the impossible? I don't know. Anyway, for my public shows and social media and special projects, public shows. Should I do the whole thing? That's it for this episode of the podcast of the impossible. For my public shows, social media, special projects, and more, head on over to oftheimpossible.com. Does that sound relatively?
I'm Willard.
I just lost all of my friends across the pond. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Peter Wood. See ya.